So if you type in PROP, then hit the tab key on your keyboard twice, it would complete a property for you, one public property for you. So I basically copied one and pasted it like 4 or 5 times, I believe, 4 times, and started giving it a name. Currently I left all the property as a string, but later on you will see that I changed 2 of them to a color type. So I believe it's a system.media.color using statement. It's amazing how much you actually have to talk when you are talking and video recording and coding. However, when I'm doing a voiceover like this, it kind of seems like I run out of something to say very quickly. So basically, I mean, that's what I'm creating here, creating a couple classes for the various information that we enter as user. So yeah. So I believe over here I was explaining that my initial thought was that if I click on the save picture, then that would save the config file. But if you follow the last video, the way I implemented the save picture was outside of the MVVM pattern. I essentially created the save picture right behind the the code behind for the view, so which is essentially the GUI. I implemented the save picture behind the GUI, which is not, it goes against our MVVM pattern. So in order for me not to continue breaking the rule, I had to create a new button, which is what I'm creating right now, that will serve as a save config. So had I did this correctly initially, I would have just implemented the save picture, the save config file right after I save the picture. It would just be in the code. The user wouldn't have to worry about or think about it. As soon as you save a picture, the assumption is that you really want to use that information. You really needed to use it, so it would be appropriate to be able to remember those information the next time you run the application. So that's essentially what I'm doing here, creating a button that a user will now have to click in order to save the config. Not ideal, but that's the best way I could implement it for this project. For me to do it the way I really wanted to do it, I would have to refactor a bunch of this code, and the video would have taken a lot longer. So let's just stick with getting it done as fast as possible. Like this is what you have to do when you are writing it, right? When you are in a team. You have to make decisions based on how much did they want to. Okay, so right now creating the button command that will handle whenever you click on the save config file. So giving it a name, and this method right here will essentially trigger whenever you click on the save config button. So okay, going back to the story that I was telling. So when you are in an organization or responsible for executing a project, a request from your boss, depending on timing, the amount of resources that they need to put into this, you have to make decisions constantly all the time. So sometimes, someone really, like one of your team member, really need to use this application to run a test today. So you will not tell them, hey, I really want to refactor the code and make it optimal, and say a week doing that or a days doing that while no, that's not acceptable. Sometimes you just have to do something that is really quick. All right, I'll get back to this story. So what I'm doing here is creating an instance of the config model. So essentially, when I click the save config file, I will create the config module instance, then add those information that I want to save, save it in. So this this object, let me call it object because it seems like I really don't know how to pronounce model or module. So this object that would be passed to a JSON serializer to save it in a file, and that will also be used to accept it from the file. So it will make sense when I start implementing it. So right now, if you notice, the footer text is from our config object. So what I am basically setting it to the txt footer. That's the name we chose for the property. When we did property change, so we called it the txt footer. So whenever we change that text, it does update this property. So essentially, that property will have the latest information about that text in our GUI. So now right here, I'm saving the header text and the title, and I should be saving the color. So this is where I started thinking how to implement the color. So I ended up deciding to just implement it as is, using color, and just implement it as is. So right now we already have a header color property from the previous lessons. So let me not call this lesson. So even though now it kind of seems like a lesson, so this is essentially me practicing what I do and sharing it on the internet. So I basically do some coding, record myself, and post it. I am actually, this is more for me, to learn and to keep myself updated and learn new skills that will help me at work or at home. I do some automation at home as well. So now I am really all over the place. So if you remember, the header color and the footer color is a type of color which is from using system.media.color using statement. So basically what we are doing here is basically saving it as a color and not have to worry about converting it. Maybe we will need to do conversion, but right now we will just treat it as a color and continue working and continue doing what we need to do. If it fails, then we will check out why it failed and fix it based on that. So sometimes if you haven't done some kind of syntax before, you basically will make some assumption that based on all the code that I've written and how things typically work, I would expect it to work this way. So that's essentially the assumption that I'm making here. So now I'm changing the string to a color type, the string type to a color type to represent what that information is. All right. Okay, so let's get back to this story once again. So essentially, when you are in an organization, you make decisions a lot based on what's going on and the time constraint and the resources and who is in pain. You make this type of decision all the time. So I made the decision to create a new button that a user have to click to save the config file, That's probably not the best way, definitely not the best way to do it for sure. But it gets this project completed and get me to start using it. If it starts bugging me, or if I start realizing that I keep forgetting to save the config, maybe manually save it, then I will start thinking of refactoring this basically, because to implement it the way I needed to implement it, I will essentially have to refactor the code. And it's not as if I know exactly what I need to do in the refactoring process, and because in order for me to implement it the way I want it, I would have to move the save picture to the VM, to the view model, basically making it MVVM compliant again. And remember, I couldn't figure out how to do that. That was why I, took the shortcut. So so that's an unknown for sure. I don't know how long that would take me to figure out how to fix it. So instead of me, going through a rabbit hole fixing it, let me get the project working, and hopefully I have some time to work on fixing it. Then I'll come back and refactor the whole code and make it cleaner and better. So okay, let's go back to what's going on in the code. So right now I am basically so I have added all the objects, all the property in the object, the title, the header color, the footer text, and the header text. So now I am essentially converting that object into a string using a JSON serializer. And here I am writing it to a file, and I'm just saving it to the working directory. So essentially where your application, where your .exe file on for this application is, basically saving it there. So for your case, you might want to have like a particular folder you want to save it, or do whatever you need to do. So now I am passing in the string, which is a JSON string. So now you should save those information in a file, in a JSON file, and we should be happy. All right, just run the application and want to test it. So we are just going to test it as is, particularly when the color is not selected. I'm curious to see what it shows, when you don't have the footer and header color selected. Curious to see what it shows. Will it show like a null color or something, or zero? But we'll see. So I have already clicked the saved config. So right here I am just going to the working directory to open up the JSON file, just so you know that we have saved it. So in the bin file, if you scroll up, I will pass it. Yep, right here the JSON file is already there, so we can open it. I like to use Visual Studio to open it because it gives you some formatting capability. JSON file is a little bit, it's not something that is very user friendly. Technically it is if you compare it to a lot of config files. So right here, so it saved it really good. So, and the header color is null, okay, and the footer text is correct, title is correct, okay. Looks like everything is working fine. So I think I am going to stop right here. This is actually exactly what I said in the video, but unfortunately no audio. I am going, because the video is getting a little bit long, I am going to stop here, and I will make another one that covers, pulling or automatically pulling the JSON file into your app every single time you start the application, just so you have you constantly have the last updated thumbnail. And I feel like this project is becoming more of coding, less of the thumbnail. But let's go ahead and stop right here, What did I do? Okay, I think I changed something just to show you that the JSON file is actually saving and updating, those files. So I think I deleted it and saved it again, and I will do something, but it works. And I would basically see, okay, it looks like I'm changing something. Yep, change the text, did the save again. That should update the JSON file. So let's open the JSON. It did override the previous data. So if we open up the JSON file again and format the document, as you could see, change here is now the so later we will go over pulling that config file to the app. All right, thank you.